You can just see all the work that was done there. I might call out the image in the lower right-hand corner. You can see that very, very large tree trunk kind of sitting out there in that open space. That was a on-the-spot decision that the contractor didn't have the equipment on site to pull that out on time. We were pressed for time. We just told them, leave it. We'll figure out what to do with it. It actually is in a lowland area, so every spring it floods and it kind of sits on a little island. Kids love to make their way out to it. The water's only about 4 inches deep. It's muddy, it's buggy. They love it. The moms kind of, say thank you because their car gets all muddy, but they love it, right? And so it's just a kind of a natural way that we evolved that design. So the next slide does show a little bit more of the finished product. And you can see how we utilize some of those timbers, and we utilize them throughout the entire space, whether they're climbing elements that are horizontal, placed horizontally on grade, or whether they're more vertical elements. We did find some that we had some hollowed out trees that we put in there. Some of these, hollowed out ones, and we have about 3 of those on site. We did char them, with fire to help preserve the wood and try to mitigate any splinters that might come about. But again, most of these came from the park and working with the city and some of the other city parks as well, I might add. So the next slide shows the stream. And again, there's a bigger story here I'll get into on lessons learned, but this is the most popular part of the playscape. People are drawn to water just naturally, right? And so especially kids. And so I know we probably get quite a bit more precipitation in St. Louis. We get about 36, 37 inches a year. I imagine that's a little bit more than what you get out in the West. And so it can get quite humid in St. Louis as well. And so, and we have a number of streams and rivers in the area. We don't have mountains and we don't have oceans, but we do have lots of rivers. And so it's a common element of the Midwest landscape here in St. Louis. And so people are familiar with it. Well, all that being said, this is piped water. Even though it's in the swale, it does pick up some groundwater. There are 4 bubblers on the stream. It's all piped water. The city owns their own water system. They have two water plants, one on the Mississippi, one on the Missouri, and so fortunately they don't charge themselves because those bubblers crank out over 1,000 gallons each per day. So, but you know what? The kids don't know that. Even if they do know that, they don't care. They're having fun, and the result of it, as you can see in the photographs there, it's been very, 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 very popular. So. A little bit more on sensory. The next slide shows some of the other elements. And you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner, it's our willow tunnel. We did struggle with this the first 2 years. They were saplings. We actually received them from a grower in Vermont. And we put them in, and the kids just automatically destroyed it. And so we learned we didn't give the willow saplings enough time to get established. So we replanted it, and then we put up signs and roping to say please stay out, and that's helped. And so now those are living, growing, essentially willow trees, right? And they are tied together with some twine, and they do create kind of a fun little enclosure environment for kids. You can see the sand pits. We have a number of those throughout. We have a sensory garden in the lower left-hand corner. As you approach that, the landscaping was done specifically for texture, for fragrance, for height, for color. So as you make your way to the sensory garden, especially children, they're surrounded by perennials that are 4 or 5 feet tall, rattlesnake master, Rebecca, there's bergamot, and so it's just a wonderful sensory experience, especially in season. Not so much when we go dormant, but in season when folks are there, it's a wonderful space. So the next image shows a little bit on. I'll try to speed up here. Again, on the water, I will point this out towards the end. Initially, we didn't have all this water because the design plan said make it as natural as possible. Well, the water was just percolating into the soil and disappearing. And we had a bit of an argument ensue that's like, well, that's the way it was designed, and that's nature. And then some others are saying, well, the only water is congregating. You see in the upper left-hand corner of that pool, and there's one on that side of the boardwalk, another one on the other side. That's where everybody was. There's nobody else in the rest of the stream channel because that's where the water was. And so we eventually, initially they put down thick rubber matting, covered that up. That didn't work. And then I'll get into the solution we came up with, which was basically we came back and poured concrete amongst the stones. And now we have water from the very top spring to the lower intake on Carr Lane, bank to bank. And I'll get into a story about whether or not you can tell it's concrete or not. So, but people are drawing the water, right? And I'm reminded of that quote, Lauren Ensley. I'm going to paraphrase, but if there's magic to be found on this planet, it's to be found in water. And so kids love it, right? And parents love it. And yes, it's a fabricated stream, but they don't know that for the most part. They don't care. Even some of the parents think that the bubblers we have are natural springs, but they're not. And it's great. If they don't, if you're a child that never has the experience to make it out to some of our local streams like the Merrimack, the Current, the Jacks Fork, the Huzzah, whether you're in Scouts or you're a camping family, you put my kids on a creek, you're there for hours, right? But if you're a child that doesn't have that opportunity in St. Louis, this gives you that opportunity, especially if you're that toddler to about 12, 13-year-old age. Then that 13-year-old is going to say, hey, take me to the Current or take me to the Merrimack. I'm ready to go, right? It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful environment for families. There are days where we have probably, I would venture, anywhere from 500 to 600 people on that stream. It is just packed, all from the top to bottom, which is wonderful to see. So landscaping, a little bit of a shout out to our landscape management crew on the next slide. And if you recall, our initial slide just showed, the trees and the turf grass. This is what our landscape management crew does. Heavy emphasis on native landscaping and native grasses and perennials. But there's also some horticultural mix, cultivars and others. I will say that initially the playscape was programmed to have one full-time person and one seasonal. That is now 3 full-times and I'm sorry, 2 full-times and 2 seasonals to help maintain it. Our seasonals are only there in season, basically from April to October. And so, but it's beautiful. And if you walk along some of these pathways, especially if you're a child, holding your parent's hand or your grandparent's hand, and these grasses are 4 or 5 feet tall, or these flowers, and they're full of pollinators, it's a magical experience. It truly is. And so we're very fortunate to have that opportunity. So, so the next slide just touches a little bit on some of the educational. We do have an educational group in Forest Park Forever. They conduct classes there. And again, they make heavy use of just that field, that open space. Again, that flexible space, that flexible use. We did incorporate some of the graphics from our planning process from the school children, and those are on the signage in the space. You can see another salvaged tree trunk there that have rotted through. We charred it. It's a little hobbit hut, just kind of sticking in the forest. Very, very popular with the Lord of the Rings crowd, right? So very popular.